The mania has started, and you'll find slam dunk savings and selection during our Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe. We're celebrating our 60th anniversary all year long, and that means buzzer-beating incentives and special dealer offers, like a new 24 Ford Bronco Big Bend Sasquatch, lease for $499 a month. Or a new Ford F-150, now $1,500 or 2.9% APR during this Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe. At a time when every dollar counts, Capitol Ford in Santa Fe is stepping up and offering employee pricing for everyone. Yes, employee pricing for everyone is now available on new Fords. You pay what Ford employees pay. Employee pricing means save up to $9,000 off MSRP on a new 25 Ford F-150, or save up to $4,800 off, plus 3.9% APR on a new 24 Ford Bronco. From America, for America. We're Capitol Ford in Santa Fe.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
I'm going to hit you with the triple hey there. How's everybody doing? My name is Ryan Tamori. Welcome to the Pit Press Live. Great job, my other co-host last night. I was rather lazy this week because I revolved around the sun another year on Tuesday and didn't care, pulled a pulled a Peter from Office Space and didn't do a thing, and it was absolutely fantastic. So next week we'll be back to Tuesday and Thursday shows. I've got a couple guests lined up. Friend of mine next week, Nate Strong, who works in the UNM athletic department. So looking forward to talking to him. Check out our website, thepitpressnm.com, exclusive content. Nick lawyering, doing lawyer things, talking about house settlement. That's all over my head. My U.S. history degree and print journalism degree are hard at work as I sell printers and computers daily and then own this company. Anyway, also Pit Press Plus, exclusive content. So check that out. A little bit informal tonight. No disrespect to our guest, but once I introduce some of the usual suspects or the gang, we'll move on to him. And it's UNM men's basketball, so it should strike a chord with our audience in early May. I introduce the older, smarter, wiser version of the Nunez. He's a Lobo fan since 1970 and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs, Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how you doing?
Older, yes. Smarter, my son works at the Department of Justice, so he always, he's a very, very bright young man. So good to be here. Looking forward to listening to Mike Roberts on a podcast my son sent me, and he certainly got the name that people won't forget around here. Following of course, the legendary Mike Roberts has been passed away for years, but the best announcer New Mexico's ever had for sure as a Lobo voice of the Lobos.
It's I think it's quite the coincidence. All right, to the younger, better looking, smarter version. See, I stole this joke from The Simpsons, Nick. But anyway, producer and voice of high school athletics for ProView, Mr. Nick Nunez.
Good evening, Ryan. And, as far as my dad, he's definitely the wiser one. He's been around for a long time. He's got a lot of experience in sports and in broadcast. So just happy to be on with you guys, Ryan. Excited for our guest, UNM men's basketball assistant coach, Mike Roberts. He's going to be a great guy to talk to. So looking forward to getting into it.
We're going to bring him on right now. I was trying to start the show about, 15 minutes ago, and then I had technical difficulties. And then Eric jumped on. We're going to probably talk about the house settlement and then maybe the new UNM quarterback who, again, I'm trying to write more football. And I looked at it, and he was 2 for 4. His stats. So hopefully maybe next week we can have Jason Eck on. But we're now going to move forward with some basketball talk. All right. He is one of the new assistant coaches under Eric Olin with the UNM men's basketball team. He played at Indiana from 2000 to 2005, found himself in the national title game in 2002. I don't know if I'll bring up a player by the name of Juan Dixon, maybe not. Member of 3 NCAA tournament teams, included the Final Four national championship in 2002, was a graduate assistant under legendary Bobby Knight from 2005 to 2006 at Texas Tech, spent time at Cal. Rice was an associate head coach at UNC Greensboro. We all know how I love mid-major basketball. Full-time assistant at his alma mater in Indiana. From 2019 to 2021, full-time assistant at University of Cincinnati and a full-time assistant down south at UTEP. His name is Mr. Mike Roberts. Coach, thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Ryan Tamori. Ed and Nick Nunez join us. We appreciate your time tonight.
Appreciate you having me on, guys. Thanks a lot.
I'm going to throw it over to Nick or Ed to start with the first question.
Go ahead, son.
Thanks, Dad. Appreciate it. Coach, thanks for being with us tonight. Welcome to Albuquerque. How does it feel to be at UNM?
Feels great. I've been here about 3 weeks as we're trying to get our roster together, and drove over from El Paso about 3 weeks ago and been here for, that whole time as we recruit all these guys. And it's a great place. I knew this was a great place in terms of I'd been here when I was at UTEP last year for a game and knew a lot about it, the tradition, but I didn't know the guts of how great everything is with this program and the setup we've got over here. So it's been elite.
Coach, you were with Joe Golding last year at UTEP, like you just mentioned. An opportunity arose for you to come join New Mexico and Eric Olin's coaching staff. Can you tell us how you connected with Coach Olin and why you wanted to be on his coaching staff?
Yeah, when I saw he got the job, I'd followed the team really closely. Tom Tankowitz on the staff was a grad assistant and worked his way up to staff when I was there. So I followed his teams really closely just because of that connection. And when I saw he was in the neighborhood and had respect for this program, I reached out right away. And we kind of started gradually talking over a couple of weeks. And when he offered the job, there was really nothing to discuss. When you want me there and how soon, so I'm excited to be here.
Dad, go ahead.
Coach, you mentioned UTEP, and UTEP will become a part of the Mountain West Conference next season. Now, you may or may not know New Mexico and UTEP, some big rivalry moments in the 70s and 80s, and even somewhat into the 90s. So you'll be a part of that here. But I listened to your podcast intently, and you mentioned mentors such as Tim Garl, Bob and Pat Knight, and Ben Braun. Having these very different basketball experiences and coaches, how have they shaped who you are today? Because I listened closely. When you mentioned the trainer at Indiana, he'd been there for years, and Pat and Bob Knight, and how's that shaped you to who you are today as a coach?
Yeah, I think without naming specific names, I've been really fortunate. Going back to, I'm from Indiana originally, but I went to high school in Eugene, Oregon. Had a really famous high school coach named Dean Stepp, who you might know his son, Blake Stepp, played at Gonzaga, was a draft pick of the T-Wolves. So had a great high school coach. And then obviously the people I was around in Indiana, we had a high level of success. So those people helped mold me. And then I was really fortunate. My first paying job after I was no longer connected to the Indiana program was Ben Braun, who was a great coach I was fortunate enough to work for 6 years. So, he taught me a lot about how this profession really works. Obviously, it's very different from being a player and being a coach in this profession. So Ben Braun, a guy named Louis Renault, his associate coach, taught me the profession. And I've been really lucky everywhere I've been to be around, high-level guys that are winners. And you just kind of try to take a little thing from everywhere you've been that you can bring to your next stop, whether that's an assistant or a head coach. And I've been really fortunate to be around a lot of winning and a lot of good coaches. So hopefully I can take some of that wisdom and help it rub off on our guys here.
Go ahead, son.
Coach, in your coaching career, you've been at so many places. You've kind of been known for developing post players. You've coached some pretty good post players over your career. Ryan Anderson at Cal, who went on to have an over 10-year NBA career. You coached Trace Jackson Davis at Indiana. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background coaching post players, Coach?
Yeah, you can probably tell from this podcast, I'm a big guy myself, about 6'9", 250. So I was a post player myself with some high-level guys. I played with 3 guys at Indiana that went on to play in the NBA, Jared Jeffries being the best one. Kirk Haston was a teammate of mine, and then DJ White. All 3 of those guys had extended NBA careers. And then as a young assistant, I was really fortunate when I was at Cal Berkeley. The late, great Pete Newell was still alive. So I was able to go observe his big man camp and just be a fly on the wall for that. And a lot of the stuff that I've used, since I was a young 25, 26-year-old guy at Cal Berkeley has been stolen straight from the great Pete Newell, right? And so obviously the game's changed some. It's more of a pick and roll, pocket pass, baseline finisher type of game than it used to be when I first started in this. But the foundation of all the stuff that I've done with developing bigs is from Pete Newell, and then a few things from Coach Knight, obviously. And then I think the biggest thing with that is forget your mentors and who you want to learn, skill development from. The biggest thing, your job as a post coach, especially when it relates to offense, is figuring out what your current boss and the current offensive coordinator where you're at's going to do, and figuring out where they're going to get the ball in the games and just rep that repetitively, right? And I know it sounds really simple, but I think there's a little bit of an art to that. And I've been really fortunate. I've coached, I think about 17 guys that have played really high level professional basketball in Europe. And to be honest, I'm prouder of some of the guys that maybe weren't as highly recruited. With Ryan Anderson and Trace Jackson Davis, basically all I had to do was not screw them up. So I don't want to take a lot of credit for that. But there's some other guys that, weren't as highly touted that developed over 3 or 4 year periods with me that have gone on to have great professional careers. And I'm actually more proud of them even than the guys that, are the name guys, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Coach, one of the things you mentioned was scheme. Scheme is important. How does everybody fit in the scheme? Coach Olin's scheme is very unique. Us as Lobo fans have gotten to know it a little bit more. It's all about pace, space, move the ball, play fast. How does your kind of coaching style and your coaching background translate into Coach Eric Olin's style?
Well, I think full transparency, I'm learning Coach Olin's style, right? I've been here 3 weeks. So if it act like I haven't mastered, that would be false of me. But I've coached in a lot of high level systems. And I think, when I was at Ben Braun at Cal, we were really ahead of our time. Ryan Anderson was a pick and pop 5 before there were pick and pop fives, right? And a lot of the stuff Coach Olin does is dictated through his two highest usage guys are his point guard and the initiating post, who usually will pop a lot in the middle and then play to the second side. So, I've worked in that skill development system long ago before, to be honest, many people were doing it. Obviously, I've got to learn the smaller details of Coach Owen's system, and that's what I'm here to do. We've been spending a lot of time together. Not only we've been recruiting, but we've been having basketball talks daily about how we're gonna, when we get the guys in early June, with our new roster hitting the ground running. So it's a process to all that, and but I'm very confident in everybody in our staff's basketball acumen to figure that out. Right.
Yeah, definitely. Ryan, go ahead.
So forgive me in advance. I'm a big history buff. Even when it comes to sports in this country. I mean, you were a part of a team now, obviously under Mike Davis. I think it was his second or third year there. You guys went on a phenomenal run at, historically a huge basketball school with University of Indiana. Can you take us through
Indiana
maybe?
University. You
Oh,
got to get that right. Sorry.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
it is.
I balked at Nick because my dad went to Rutgers and he said University of Rutgers, and I said Rutgers University. So I'm sorry. Indiana University. That's right. It's IU. I should know better. Your 2002 run to the NCAA championship game. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind, or anything that you loved a part of that team? And how, maybe secondly, how hard it is to do that?
Yeah, that was a really special group. It'd been through a lot. The year before was when Coach Knight was fired in the fall. So like that was happening as practice was about to start, right? So the year before, the core of that team had been through a lot. And to be frank, we were a good team. That was an excellent defensive team with one great player in Jared Jeffries, and we caught fire, right? Like we were a historical defensive team from the Big Ten analytics standpoint, and we found a little offensive groove. And yeah, there's nothing like it. I mean, I'll never forget it. I was a medical redshirt that year, so I didn't play, but I was a part of that whole journey. And I think the thing that it shows is the beauty of the NCAA tournament, right? You get some older, experienced guys, and one player that gets on a hot streak, and that was Jared Jeffries for us. And who knows what can happen? I mean, we got beat by a better team in Maryland. They had 4 NBA players. We had 1. So you looking back on it now as a coach, well, of course they beat us. But we upset the most incredible thing about that run was we beat the Duke team that won the national title the year before, and we played them in Lexington in the Sweet 16. And that team was Jason Williams, Mike Dunleavy, Carlos Boozer, Chris Duhon, Jones. I'm probably forgetting somebody. They had 6 NBA players, and that was one of those NCAA teams that everything was geared for them. Everybody thought they were going to win it. If we played them 100 times, we might beat them twice, but we got them that night, right? So that teams are still really close, and it was really amazing how it brought the whole school and the whole state together. That's the thing I like about this spot is when I played at Indiana, no offense to the pro teams, we were the biggest thing in the state. And in New Mexico, Lobo's men's basketball is the pro team of the state, the biggest thing in the state. So I've been associated with that, and I'm excited about it again.
Forgive me, I know it has a different name, but it's still Assembly Hall. What's a game like at Assembly Hall?
Amazing. It's one of the electric venues, just like here. When you get it rolling in Assembly Hall, it's worth 10 points for your home team. The pit is amazing. I was only here when it was a quote unquote exhibition game with UTEP. I could tell how special it was. When I was a J at Texas Tech, they had actually gone to the Sweet 16 out of this building the year before, and all those guys that I was with talked about it. The pit actually reminds me of Iowa on steroids, right? Like University of Iowa's kind of built the same down in the ground, and this reminds me of the same thing on steroids. So I can't wait to see it. But back to your original question, Assembly Hall is an elite venue, one of the best.
I appreciate that answer. Obviously, you played for Bobby Knight, then Mike Davis. I had the pleasure a billion years ago to cover Steve Alford when he was the head coach at the University of New Mexico. I don't think he liked to harp on a lot of Bobby Knight questions. Obviously, he was a part of a national title team there. But any takeaways from under Bobby Knight, and what were the differences? I know Mike Davis was an assistant, but any transparencies between the two of them, different coaching styles?
Yeah, I think obviously every coach has his own personality and runs their program very differently. But a lot of what Coach Davis did from a practice standpoint, he'd taken for Coach Knight, right? That was his main mentor as a coach. You mentioned Coach Alford. I competed against Coach Alford as a player when he was at Iowa and I was at Indiana. Have great respect for him. Got to know him a little bit when I was at GA, and I looked up to Steve Alford. Right, I was a little kid in Indiana when they won the 1987 championship. I remember where I was. Right, but back to your original question, I think we had a team at Indiana when Mike Davis first got the job that had all been coached by Coach Knight, and I think that helped in the transition. And the thing about Coach Knight that I think people, things get lost with some of the antics that people still talk about, but a lot of the modern preparation that people do with advanced analytics and video, he created that on his own. His ability to break down video and prepare a team is second to none, and everything about him was about preparation before the battle, right? And I think that was his elite gift, along with being able to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of players and really exaggerate playing to players' strengths. Because to be frank, when you look at the history of great college basketball coaches, Bobby Knight probably won more with less than almost anybody. He had Isaiah Thomas and some great players, but to be honest, other than Isaiah Thomas, you wouldn't really mention any of his players as Hall of Fame-esque players past their experience with him in college, right? So I think that speaks to his level of expertise. And Mike Davis is a guy I'm still close to. He really helped Penny this year. And Mike Davis, every place he was, took a team to the NCAA tournament. And to be frank, other than Indiana, none of those other places were story rich, traditional storied programs, right? So that speaks to his coaching acumen. Mike Davis's strength was he was really good at getting his best players open shots, offensive execution, and then he also was a guy that was just like Coach Knight, could really bring up the intensity level of his teams, and we played hard for him.
I appreciate that answer. Secondly, I'm one of the two guys. He's not with us tonight. My friend and co-host is he's got gambling lineage in gambling lineage in Vegas. His uncle used to work for the Mirage, like big time. And I still am a degenerate gambler. That's not here nor there. Talking to assistant coach.
Can't help you with that. Won't touch
No,
that.
no. I know. But what brings me to that point is how much I love mid-major college basketball. And UC Greensboro, you were there and you took them to the tournament under Wes Miller, I believe in 2017. At a small school like that, when you go on a run and you get that auto bid, I believe it's the SoCon. I think I'm going to probably
Yes, sir,
be.
you're correct.
That's right. All right, there we go. There's that UNM education. I don't know, and the Mountain West has been a 4-bid league, a 6-bid league. They at one point were a 1, but then they've gotten some good teams. But when you are in a smaller conference like that and you get that auto bid and win that conference tournament, what is that like?
There's nothing like it. You talked about the Final Four experience at Indiana, but probably my most rewarding experience in any level of basketball was being a part of that rebuild at UNC Greensboro. I was there the first 4 years I was there. We really struggled, to be frank, when we came and took over that program. Wes Miller was the head coach, me being the associate coach. It was like a D2 program. We weren't very good. And, by that 6th year I was there, we had a chance to beat Gonzaga in the tournament. We brought the community together. There's nothing like it. Almost all those guys from that team are still playing professional basketball 8 years later in some level. That's when I think I really became a coach, right? Because we had to overcome challenges at every level. You had to be creative, finding solutions. A lot of them built-in advantages at a place like here, Indiana or Cincinnati, didn't exist. So it was an unbelievable experience. We're still really close, all that group. And I'll always look back fondly at my time at Greensboro.
I appreciate that. And lastly, before I throw it back over to Ed, I know you got Duke, NC State, Wake Forest, North Carolina. Still at a school like UNC Greensboro, I still think, and then to revive that program, I'm sure basketball, it just has to be as crazy as even the bigger time schools, right?
Yeah, well, that you kind of hit it right on the head. Is back then the ACC offices were in Greensboro, so no matter how good you get at Greensboro, it's still ACC country, right? And in recruiting, that's what you had to overcome. but we were able to, beat one of those ACC schools that you mentioned, compete with the others. And I thought towards the end of our time at Greensboro, no offense to the other programs, but other than Duke and Carolina, I felt that there was years you could say we were the third best program in the Carolinas, which at Greensboro, that was an unbelievable accomplishment. And North Carolina is a great basketball state, just like New Mexico is. College basketball is big there. And by the time we were at the end of Greensboro, we were making the Coliseum half packed, which is unheard of for a school like Greensboro.
I appreciate that. I'm going to throw it back over to Ed.
Coach, you mentioned you've coached in a lot of different systems. It's a complete makeover here at UNM. Richard Pitino had success 2 years in a row, won a Mountain West Conference tournament, got in the NCAA tournament, losing to Clemson, won the Mountain West tournament outright this year, the Mountain West regular season title, and then got in the second round before losing to Michigan State, gave Michigan State a pretty good run. Thought they might have had a chance to make that elusive Sweet 16. It's a complete makeover here with the new head coach, new coaching staff, and a completely new roster. How excited are you for this challenge?
Really exciting. I think that 10 years ago, every challenge is big in college basketball anytime you get to a new location, so I'm not minimizing it. But I think our ability to potentially turn it around quicker exists because of the transfer portal, and there's a ton of teams. You look at Baylor, a great storied program. They're no different than us, right? They're kind of doing their whole roster over. So I think in the modern world of college basketball, a lot of us look at this, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's 10-month missions, right? Everybody gets the roster together roughly about this time. Starting in June, you start practices, and then you do the best you can through whenever the end of the season is. And if it's a good season, it's a 10-month run, right? From June till hopefully April. So we're really excited about it. I think we've put together a good roster with some pieces that fit really well together, that fit Coach Olin's system, and we're excited to get going.
You mentioned working under, one more thing about Coach Knight. Two New Mexico guys, Bubba Jennings served as an assistant there at Texas Tech, played, still arguably the greatest high school player here in New Mexico history. Scored 75 points one time without 3-point shots. Ronald Ross, the former Hobbs star, played at Texas Tech. I had a chance to interview both those gentlemen, and I just interviewed Coach Ross probably about 2 months ago. And I asked him, how tough was, the general, Bob Knight, the whole thing. And he said his mother was tougher than Coach Knight was, and Coach Knight, as you know, it was pretty darn tough. But, you mentioned in your podcast, you worked under him as an assistant. You mentioned doing the Mr. Miyagi, kind of jobs as the manager. But he said to you one day, son, you're doing a good job. For you coming from an icon like that, what did that mean to you at that time?
Oh, compliments didn't come lightly from him, so that was a big deal. And you mentioned two of my friends. Bubba Jennings was the ops guy when I was there. I played the guy on horse probably 150 times. He beat my ass every time. Never beat him once. But Bubba's a good guy, most amazing shooter maybe I've ever been around. And then I used to work out Ronald when he was getting ready to play overseas, and actually went and saw him last year when I was at UTEP. Obviously doing a great job at Hobbs. So those are two friends of mine. I can't wait to get Ronald over to campus when he said he's going to come here for the State Coaches Association convention. I guess they have. I'm learning, but to your original question, my dad was a pretty tough guy. No offense to Coach Knight. So I think Coach was pretty detailed about recruiting guys that he thought could handle his style of coaching. And I think I was one of those kids too. And Ronald Ross definitely was one of the toughest, most underrated players that Coach has ever coached, for sure.
He's doing a great job at Hobbs, doing a great job. One more question, and I'll pass it back to my son. I've got to tell you this. You may not have known this about Coach Knight. The late Gary Colson had been fired here, and Coach Knight flirted with New Mexico for about a week. That he was going to come here. Yeah. The press went crazy. Now, I always figured he was just kind of just, playing with Indiana a little bit. There's been some friction at that time, and he didn't end up coming here. Dave Bliss, one of his disciples, did. But it was an exciting time. You open up the Tribune that time, which Albuquerque Tribune is defunct now. You open up the Journal. Is Coach Knight coming here? It was an exciting time, but yeah, he didn't end up coming. And but Coach Olin's putting together a roster that seems to fit his philosophy. Do you know anything about some of the players he's recruited so far? Just got one yesterday. Do you know anything about some of the players that he's recruited?
Yeah, of course, I've been studying it. I think that I think we got a pretty dynamic downhill guard and Dayton Albury that really fits his system, and then I actually followed Chol pretty closely at his time at Rutgers. I think he's a really dynamic guy as well. And then I think I think we have a bunch of versatile wings, whether it be, Patton Howe, Hopped, that I think can really fit his style, multi-positional, being able to switch on defense and being multiple on offense. So I think one thing I've learned through all my years coaching is a couple places that I've been that we failed. The most important thing as an assistant coach is to recruit players that fit your head coach and make sure you create a roster that fits that coach's style and personality. And I think we've done a good job of that in a short amount of time. And, we're still trying to add a couple more pieces. And I don't want to get into the specifics of each guy because I'll leave players out. But I do think that we've created a dynamic roster that has multiple guys that can make plays. And just as importantly, a team that can play really high level defense and has high level physicality and switchability, which has been everyone talks about Coach Olin's dynamic pace and space offense and all that. And that's very true. But I mean, look at his analytics defensively last year in terms of creating turnovers and defensive field goal percentage defense. And I think, defense can lead to offense. You can tell, obviously, I'm probably a defensive minded guy listening to me talk, but I think that has also been answered to a degree with this roster, which is going to be really important.
My kind of guy, defensive.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about positional needs on the roster. Now, I don't know what you can share. I know we've got, I think, 9 official commits at this time. There's 11 that have been announced. Some Lobo fans on social media, people that follow the program closely, there's been some questions that have popped up. Do we have traditional post size? I mean, we have a commitment from JT Rock, 7'1". I know Coach Olin's style is a little bit different. It seems like he likes the long wings and the long guards. Being able to switch everything like you just alluded to. But can you share if you guys are hunting for one more traditional big to just add a little more depth there?
Yeah, we're definitely hunting for some size. I can't comment on who that is, but yes, we're definitely hunting that. We're very well aware that 2 of the top teams in the Mountain West are San Diego State and Boise State that pride themselves on physicality and defense and rebounding. So we've got to be able to answer that bell, and so we're really well aware of that. I think there's going to be some give and take with some lineups that might be almost unguardable for the other team. And then, hey, on the other end, can we hold up defensively and on the boards? But we're aware of that. And yes, we're out actively pursuing some size and physicality. I think we've made some big time progress on that front that I can't speak about, but you guys should know about soon.
And then one more for you, Coach. Just the recruiting process right now, man. I mean, God, there's so many things that are unsettled, right? I mean, you got this big court case. A settlement could change the landscape of college basketball. Everybody's planning for it to happen with the roster cuts and revenue sharing and all that. I mean, how do you kind of just navigate through that during this time?
Well, I think we've all got to be adaptable, right? Like this is a different sport than what I even coached probably 5 years ago. And so it's just like anything. It's a challenge. You got to figure out the parameters you're operating under, of which sometimes we think we know, other times we don't, right? There's a lot of precarious things up in the air. I'm not going to get too much into it, but I'm happy the players are getting paid. It's long overdue. But I think the only thing that we would ask as coaches and administrators is that the rules and the parameters under which we're working become a little bit more defined, right? And I think that allows you to create more strategy and a little bit more certainty. So, hey, it's exciting. It's also challenging, but hey, everybody's got the same challenges, so we're not here to complain about it. We're here to try to figure it out, and within the context of the rules and the parameters, create the best roster possible, and create a winning program. That's our job.
Ryan,
any other questions from Ed or Nick?
No, Coach. I just want to mention real quick. I don't know if you've heard that you might have somebody might have told you, but your name will not be forgotten by Lobo fans. Mike Roberts was a long-time Lobo broadcaster, the best broadcaster New Mexico's ever had. He's been passed away for a number of years, but your name will not be forgotten by Lobo diehard fans. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know all the history of Mike Roberts, the announcer, like I should, but I am aware that he was the famous voice of the Lobos forever. So I hope to semi live up to the Mike Roberts name in Lobo land. That would be great.
Well, I do have to apologize because I know better. With University of Indiana, I knew it was IU.
Oh, it's 0 worries. Another guy that has a connection to University of New Mexico's Norm Ellenberger, who I actually knew a little bit. So Norm, we won't talk, here. And then he was with Coach Haskins. And then when I was coming in as a player, he had just retired as an assistant. So I got to know Norm pretty well. He was around a lot. So that's another, Lobo to Indiana connection for sure.
Let me just speak to that real
Ed,
quick.
I was going to say,
I've got to speak to that because when 1977, 78 is when New Mexico was ranked 4th in the nation. And I was a 15-year-old kid. The pit then had 18,000. The mezzanine was there. And those media seats that the Lobos have now belong to the students. You wouldn't have believed it. It's loud now, right? But add 3,000 more seats and the kind of basketball that Coach Ellenberger was also in Blue Chips with Coach Knight. He's there in the huddle. And I would tell my wife, hey, look at Norm, man. I got to tell you this, Coach. When as a young, guy, I was 15, would go to practice at the pit, when we could. And he always would come up, hey, guys, how you doing? Flamboyant. The jewelry, the tan. He owned the pit, man. The only coach in Lobo history to have a cheer in the pit, storming in the pit, storming Norman bumper stickers. The guy was amazing. So you brought him up. I'm sorry I had to blab about him because to me
he was the best. He was the best.
I loved him, man.
He was older by then.
Coach. Yeah.
He wasn't as smooth, but he was the best. So he had a lot of wisdom.
Oh, I love Norm. I did. I really did.
I knew once you brought up Norm Ellenberger. Ed, I looked at Nick and I knew Ed was going right there. But I love history too, as I already earlier mentioned. But just to say, I will not call it University of Indiana.
All good.
Before Coach Mike Roberts, he's assistant with new UNM head men's basketball coach Eric Olin. Coach, we can't thank you enough for spending 30 minutes with us on a random Thursday night. We much appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Look forward to meeting you face to face. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Coach. You as well.
I will throw it over to Nick or Ed, who are the actual basketball gurus here. Ed, I'll start with you. What'd you think?
You know what? My son sent me the podcast, and I listened to it, and I listened to it again today. I really like what I heard about him because of the people that he's been around. He's mentioned Ben Braun, Bob Knight. He's Pat Knight. Pat Knight was the head coach at Texas Tech for a while, Bobby Knight's son. And the only one, when I read Season on the Brink, that could tell Bob Knight, man, you're dumb about things he did, and Bob Knight wouldn't go crazy. The only one that could tell Dad something, So he's been around a lot of great mentors, a lot of different systems. Was at UTEP last year. This is a guy that's still learning. I'm impressed. I really am. And sometimes you need a guy in the huddle, a good guy, and my son knows this. He coached too. A good cop, bad cop. I'm not saying he's going to be the bad cop, but he's got that presence about him. As soon as I listened to that podcast that Nick sent me, I'm like, hey, this guy knows. He knows the game. He's been around. He's still learning and evolving. This is going to be a different system here than he's coached at UTEP and other places he's been at. He was with Joe Gold at UTEP. So I think that Coach Olin did a great job in getting him. I think he's going to be a great asset to the New Mexico men's basketball staff. I really do.
Most things that how I address or approach things on the show, or the old days when I was a journalist, at least it's a sense of humor. Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, first got a shout out to Eric Moulton, who I know is a co-owner with you, Ryan. He's behind the scenes. He's the one that sent us that podcast, and the podcast that we're referring to, it's called Beyond the Box Score. It was recorded, I think, February 2nd of this year, and Coach Roberts really just goes in depth about his basketball playing days. He grew up in Indiana all the way through his playing career and all the places he's been coaching. So just a great listen. I'd recommend it to our Lobo fans. I think I tried to put it in the chat, but it's Beyond the Box Score podcast. And Ryan, no, I thought he was fantastic, man. Just so many great stories. He started playing college basketball in 2000, and here he is, half or a quarter century later. He's just seen so much at the highest level. I mean, he's been around Bob Knight. I think his time at UNC Greensboro is the time where he was an associate head coach under Wes Miller, I think, and they had three really strong seasons. They went into the NCAA tournament and lost to Gonzaga. I think he may have touched on it here, but
by 4.
By 4, 68-64. So he's seen a lot of basketball, and I think it's good. Coach Olin, most of his staff is guys that he's brought with him from UC San Diego. I know he Also signed a coach from UC Irvine. But no, it's just nice to bring a new guy into the mix, and I think he's going to fit in really well.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I know I'm not the X's and O's guy. I'm more of the how can I make a terrible joke and the history aspect of it. Ed, you'll appreciate this. The Battle of Tarawa. I have not really, my forte in college, quote unquote. I looked more into the battle in the Pacific, but I'm always looking to learn something there, and I just love anything history, which I guess I always think of Rafiki in The Lion King bashing Simba's head and saying it's in the past, who cares? But that's why you got to I don't know. I would be anti Rafiki. If anybody got that reference. But I appreciate it. So I don't know, for somebody to be on a team that played a national title game, to win a smaller conference like that. I know that's the question I asked him. I don't know. It's cool to me. And then how I became more involved in loving mid-major basketball. I don't know. It was a very cool interview. And he's been at some high profile places, obviously Texas Tech, played at Indiana. I still think UTEP, I mean, the history there, the lineage, I know it's not the same, but what I wanted to say, and Ed knows where I'm going to go with this, why can't UNM do it? They beat Kent State in the Elite Eight that year to get to the Final Four. Kent State from the MAC. I bet, I'm trying to think if, who was on that Kent State team. I'm wondering if Antonio Gates was. Yeah, I mean, that, I don't know. That just speaks volume that it can't, teams have done it and it can be done. Which is probably why I was a little bit harder on UNM towards the end of the season, but it just is what it is. I'm not sure if Eric's going to join us, but I wanted to talk about the quarterback for UNM football. Do you guys have any other thing, probably hitting on some of the transfers that have signed with UNM men's basketball before we get into football? Nick, you're the one who's kind of taken over covering that for us. Your thoughts on Dayton Albury? Some of the names are escaping me. I know it was another guy announced today. I think they've got 11 or 12 guys on for 15. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, 11 announced commitments. I think 9 confirmed. But no, I really like the way the roster's coming together. Coach Roberts talked about it a little bit. I think Dayton Albury certainly is the biggest name for sure. Antonio Chol comes with a lot of hype as well. 6'9" transfer from Garden City Junior College. Did his unofficial visit to the Pit. He was here when the Lobos beat VCU earlier this season. Just kind of playing out to where it looks like an Eric Olin team, similar to what we saw last year at UC San Diego. Guys that can shoot the 3 ball, that are versatile defenders and on the offensive side as well. They want to move the ball. They want to shoot. It seems like the guys that we've signed, a lot of them fit that bill. We got a lot of 2s and 3s. I think Coach Roberts said that they're on the hunt for some size. Right now we got JT Rocket 7'1", the only 7-footer, 6'10" and above guy. So once we see that fill out, I think this roster is going to be looking really good.
Ed, any thoughts from you?
Jacob Deff said this in our group text the other night. It's going to be interesting to see how different this team next year plays than Coach Pitino's teams. My son mentioned it. So did Coach Roberts. Not a lot of back to the basket, read and react, spread the floor, extra pass, shoot the 3s, force turnovers. It's going to be a way different team. And I think Dayton Albury, that signing was huge. I think he can get in the gaps. He's got great quickness. I think he's got an upside that we didn't see at Utah State. So maybe we'll see it here. So I think the recruits he's getting are people that can play his system. And I think Albury was kind of a little bit outside that. You need a guy. We said this when the shot clock is breaking down. It's 5-4. A guy can get the ball and score. And I think he's that kind of guy. And so I've been pleased with what we've seen. But I think one of the things that we won't know until we see them on the floor. That's the bottom line. Looks good. we've seen Eric's always great about getting the film out on players and giving us information. So is my son and you, Ryan. And so I think we see what we see, but we won't see or know until we see them on the floor next year in an exhibition or practice this summer, but not until they play against another opponent. Well, we know his system has worked. It's worked at UCSD, 30-5. He got to, almost beating Michigan in the first round. So he believes in his system. They hired him for a reason to come here and play that same system here. He's getting players he's comfortable with. I like what I've seen so far.
I had a conversation with Kurt Roth, and very quickly he said he likes, and I value Kurt Roth's opinion. He said he likes what he's seen, what he's gotten. So I don't know. Again, I'm optimistic. Because I don't know shit. I try not to be, get my phone's blowing up. I'll explain what's going on in a second as I try to gather my thoughts. I try not to be Dave Portnoy and say Celtics in 3. Hey-o, throwing that in there. Where's my rim shot? I might hit on that. I don't often wear this hat. I don't have much Knicks stuff. It's all Mets, Giants, Devils. But Mikal Bridges, who I loved at Phoenix, and I love the Villanova Knicks. I miss Dante DiVincenzo, but Anthony Towns. Okay, I'm going on a tangent. I don't know. That's the most NBA I've talked in forever. And yes, I am a Knicks fan, but I'm on the bandwagon now, especially beating Boston. Hell yeah. Yeah, I think the team, I don't have anything to say just yet. I think you can put a team of D2 studs together and compete. I'm going to remind Lobo fan what Utah State has done the last 3 seasons. 3 head coaches, 3 straight NCAA tournament appearances. Why not UNM? And as I repeat on this show all the time, how much of the negative Nancy I am. I'm optimistic. I am very optimistic about football, but I am getting a little worried. Maybe before we move on to different subjects, Nick, I might ask you about the house settlement, because over my head, I am the idiot when it comes to that. You texted me, Eric texted me, and then Carvana texted me. Everyone is expletive 6 in this. Okay. Eric had to bail. His wife is sick. His kids are sick. I'm sorry for that. What I wanted to throw out there, because before we know it, so I have an app. I have an app on my phone, much like every human being in this country or in the world. Again, I'm going to all 6 away games for UNM football. I will be covering that, and I need to do a better job. This week was my birthday. Sean Ryder does a good job. I'm always trying to, in the little, I have to preface it, in the little that I've written about football, I've always tried to steer clear of what Sean Ryder has written and steer clear from it, because he's done a very good job in the 2 years he's been here. But I'm looking at my app, and where time will fly, and it's just now, as we've gotten to May, has said 4 months, less than 4 months to my flight to Detroit. And I'll be with my buddy Junfu, who I was with in Cleveland, who works for the Detroit Free Press. Might have him on. Might need to get somebody on that covers the University of Michigan football sooner rather than later, because I want to hit on 2 things, Nick, before we get your thoughts on the house settlement. For those that don't understand it, like bumbling idiots like myself. Sharon Moore, the head coach at Michigan, who took over last year for Jim Harbaugh, has been suspended for 2 games due to his connection with the Connor Stallions sign stealing scandal. He won't be suspended for UNM. It will be weeks 3 and 4 against Central Michigan, and then a Big Ten game against Nebraska, which I find fascinating. So he will coach against UNM and Jason Eck week 1 over Labor Day weekend on August 30th. So there's that. Then yesterday, grumblings. I love the coaching staff at UNM. I'm still going to call it as I sees it. I don't know if they have, maybe the players to compete this year. I know that's a bold take. I'm getting a little concerned, but I feel what I've also learned about Jason Eck at Idaho is that he's maybe done less with more, which kind of gives you a sense of, if you're a Lobo fan, a little bit of a feel of relief, sense of relief. They did sign from much like UNM football powerhouse UConn and Jim Mora Jr. His dad playoffs. Cole Welver, hope I pronounced that right. Transfer. He threw 50% completion. He had a 50% completion percentage in 2024, but he was 2 of 4 for 10 yards, and his longest was 9, and then he threw for another yard. Wow. But he's 6'6". So, ESPN has him listed as 6'7", 220 pounds. Ed, you're going to love this. And this is from Sean Ryder's story on the Journal. He's a former 3-star prospect out of Liberty Christian Texas High School, threw for 4,457 yards, 60 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions in 3 seasons with the Warriors there at Liberty Christian. Coached by former Dallas Cowboy tight end, one Jason Witten. And his senior year, he passed for 3,082 yards, 50 touchdowns, and led Liberty Christian to a 14-0 record as a senior. I'm going to quote Ned James here. When you win in California and Texas as a high schooler, that's pretty good, because name all the quarterbacks who've won Super Bowls and played in Super Bowls. Where are they from? Like the last billion years? Texas and California. And I'll start with you on that. When you hear that, as I always ask, what do you think?
Well, I read about it in the paper today. Remember, we said this. He wanted another quarterback. He was looking for one. Jack Lane, the projected starter, was hurt all spring with an elbow injury. We don't know if he's going to be ready, by the start of camp in the summer. He should be, but that's one of the things that Coach Eck, you got a quarterback. Now, the stats, they look good. He didn't do much at UConn. He's another body. He played, I have all the respect in the world for Jason Witten. He was mentioned as a candidate for the Cowboys. Jason Witten was head coaching job. I never took that serious, but he had Madden-like numbers playing for Coach Witten. So I think it's another body that they brought in. And Coach Eck said in the paper, we've got 5 quarterbacks. I'd like to have 6. So, but he's happy with what he has right now. And I think that you remember Coach Ned James. Ryan, when we had him on a couple weeks ago, I asked him, what does your eye tell you? Your eye for talent, your eye for being around football as long as he's been around football. And what did he say? They need more players. That's what he said. So they got a quarterback. They got a safety from Auburn who never touched the field for Auburn. C.J. Johnson.
But you're at Auburn.
Right. He never – but you know what? He's going to – that's a starter, you would think. He's coming in to start. He said he could play free or strong safety. So there's 2 players, and there's more. He signed some more out of the portal on the defensive side that Sean Ryder said. So he's getting more players. He needs probably to get some more before the portal closes. So I said this to somebody the other day. We got to give him a chance. We gave Davey a chance. We gave Mendenhall, all the coaches that have Danny, Loxley. We gave them all a chance. I want to give him one too, Coach Eck, and see what he's able to accomplish here. He did a great job at Idaho. Fernando Lobo hired him for a reason, so I'm excited. But yeah, I was getting a little, dude, they need more players, and they got 2 of them. That safety, I think, is big. I think that's a starter. The quarterback that they Cole Welver, he's going to be a backup, I'm sure, to Jack Lane, but he's a development project, and he's got the numbers that he put up in with a pretty good coach. He's got size, 6'7". Wow. So I think it's a good signing. He wanted another quarterback. They got it.
No, and I think, and I'm not an X's and O's guy, as I always say. I need to start a segment where I just repeat myself on the show because we talk so much UNM athletics. I think that this team is going to be defensive, and it might keep them in those games. I don't know how Michigan's going to go. I do not know how UCLA is going to. I think there's a real probably chance they could beat UCLA. I know what I just said. It's going to be a tall task, but I mean, if they were to pull off any of those upsets, it would probably be UCLA. I'd have to do a little bit digging about Deshaun Foster's team. And I will bring that clip up this year from him at Big Ten Media Days last year. What we were just all, well, we're UCLA and we're in Los Angeles. Thank you for that, Deshaun. Thank you for the geography lesson, Deshaun Foster. Somebody from UCLA is going to find that and pin that when that game rolls over. Forgetting the fact that UNM beat UCLA last year in Las Vegas, and I was there. I just think it's going to be defensive. I mean, if they're going to figure out how to win games, I think tall tasks to get to 5 or 6 this year, just basing off everything I've seen. But again, I like Jason Eck. I want this to work out. And he's already the anti-Mike Locksley and Bronco Mendenhall. He hasn't sexually harassed anybody, and he talks to people. So that's a victory in my book. I don't drink anymore, so I probably won't run into him in a bar. Nick, I don't know. Before we talk about some house settlement, any thoughts on the Lobo football as we head into this summer lull?
Yeah, no, I went to the spring game, Ryan. I was there for about a half. I didn't get to see too much of it because I was with my daughter.
That's because the weather sucked.
Yeah, and my daughter was not, as interested as I was. So, but one thing that stuck out to me was the quarterback play, and that's no disrespect to James Lobstein or Gabriel Machenbacher. I mean, I thought they made some plays when they were out there, but I think Lobo football fans, were used to Devin Dampier for the last year and a half, kind of. I mean, just such a dynamic quarterback that was first team All Mountain West honors. And we're probably not going to have that this season. So that's a little bit of a difficult pill to swallow, I suppose. Defensively, Ryan, I don't think this team could get any worse than they were last year defensively under Bronco Mendenhall. So really, we have a very low ceiling and a high floor. So as far as the defense goes. So I think we'll shatter expectations on that side of the ball, hopefully. And just optimistic. What's hard about football is there's a spring transfer portal window. So it's like there's one transfer portal after the season, and then there's another transfer portal after spring football. It just creates so much uncertainty with the rosters. So I know you had Coach DePrato on last week. I thought that was a great interview. He talked about how he's still putting in the work recruiting. So I think once this roster irons out, we'll start to know more.
I was starting to write this, and I never finished it. About the defense and how I think it was kind of, you can't take away from the spring game because it could be a completely different team come August 30th in Ann Arbor. But I'm still fascinated maybe by the fact, and you guys know my jam, as much as I love college basketball, my jam is college football. And then your New York Metropolitans. I'm purposely wearing this hat because of the Knicks. It's the same colors as New York. Anyway. I'll shut up about that area of the country. I thought it was fascinating that the defense won the spring game in this unique spring, and I think it was to get fans out to have excitement even in that weather. And that was the goal. And Ed, we talked about this last year. Bronco Mendenhall was a defensive guy. He helped Rocky architect the 3-3-5. Back when they were here in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they perfected it. You always mention it, the Pac-12 killer, Ned James does. Statistically, they were one of the worst defenses in the country. And Bronco Mendenhall, it's the Brian Billick factor that I bring in. Brian Billick was the offensive coordinator for the Vikings, and specifically that 98 year where they lost to the Falcons. Randy Moss's rookie year, Randall Cunningham, Robert Smith. They broke records and they were phenomenal to watch. Brad Johnson got hurt and Randall Cunningham came in, and Terrence Mathis, UNM own, helped Atlanta beat them in the NFC title game. Brian Billick coached the Ravens to a Super Bowl championship with defense. They didn't score a point thanks to that Bullies of Baltimore documentary. That Ravens team didn't score a touchdown for 7 quarters. I mean, or I think it was 7 games. Excuse me. I don't, and they won a Super Bowl. I mean, it's insane. But they were 130th out of 133 Division I FBS teams last year in defense. They were ranked 12th in the Mountain West Conference. Obviously, they're going to be dead last. They had 874 tackles, 443 solo, which was also, if I had my stats correct, I'd have to go back and look, which was dead last. Yes, we know who the Raven team beat in the Super Bowl. And the Giants were favored. The Giants were favored, which blows my mind.
Jim Fassel.
Yeah, Jim Fossil. Yeah.
I remember him.
Thank God for Ron Dixon. They only had 3 interceptions last year and no touchdowns from interceptions. I think it was Noah Adinger that had the fumble recovery for the touchdown. But I mean, Ed, we talked about that last year, not to harp on it. We had Dimitri Johnson on, and just, those guys felt deflated. And I've had this conversation with many of fans. Realistically, and I've turned the corner as the sports reporter, host, whatever the hell I do, the hack that I am. That football team last year could have been 10-2 and 9-3. But Ed, we talked about that last year. When you hear those stats again, I'm still baffled they were that bad.
Yeah, the defense started out against Montana State, had a lead in the fourth quarter, didn't convert a couple of third downs, and that was it. Montana State took over, and I think the rushing defense, except against Utah State, that was a big win. Dimitri Johnson getting a late interception. They didn't force a lot of turnovers. They didn't sack the quarterback very much. They didn't stop the run. They had a hard time. They did. It was not, Mendenhall, Coach Mendenhall was known for defense. So that part of the side of the ball, they said in the spring game, the pass rush led by Gabe Lopez looked a little bit better. But until we see it on the field, that part of the UNM football team was not good. And frankly speaking, hasn't been good in a number of years. So that's a side of the ball that I'm sure Coach Eck is really concentrating on in recruiting.
No, I'm sure. I would hope that, they would be able to turn the corner there. I mean, you go back to 2021 or 2022 when they were the 40th ranked defense in the country and they couldn't get off the field because they were pinned. The offense was so putrid. They were put in such bad positions. But anyway, Nick, I'm going to throw it over to you about this house settlement. I don't understand it at all. I know I wish Eric could join us, but you have to explain it to me and our listeners because I don't understand it and what because that's kind of your, I don't want to say it's your total wheelhouse, but as a man of the law and an Esquire, you probably understand it more than I do.
Sure. Yeah, it definitely involves an area of law that I don't practice in, so I'm definitely not an expert, but I have been following the court case and the coverage of it pretty closely. Right now, what it is it's 3 class action lawsuits combined into one, and it represents former NCAA athletes who are claiming that they were entitled to NIL compensation that should have been in effect when it went into effect in 2021. I think so. There's 3 separate classes in that class action lawsuit. One of the classes wants back pay damages. I think there's an agreement on that class of people, I could be wrong on the number, I want to say it's $2.8 billion. They'll disperse that amongst that class. And then there's another separate class of current student athletes. And that's the one that involves revenue sharing and roster limits, which are 2 of the other big provisions in the settlement agreement. The revenue sharing, long story short, I think what it means is that college universities can start paying athletes directly. Right now, everyone's familiar with 505 Sports Venture, Kurt Roth, Mackenzie Bishop. They do a phenomenal job getting together compensation for student athletes and running UNM's third-party NIL collective. Once this house settlement goes into effect, if the settlement is approved, then compensation to student athletes will go directly from the university to the student athlete. And we don't know what that's going to look like right now. I mean, if you go on UNM's website, golobos.com, they have a little tab, and I think we put this in one of the articles that we wrote, Ryan, but they have a tab that kind of gives some information about how UNM's going to implement NIL. There's some publicly available information. You can Google UNM Athletics Council, and they've got some draft meeting minutes from a meeting on March 6th, where they talked, this council, and the website, UNM Athletics Council. If you Google that, you'll find some information about what that's about. I haven't read all into it myself, but there's some meeting minutes on there that kind of lay out a plan for what UNM will do once the House settlement is approved and how they'll implement the provisions. The other big provision, Ryan, and I'll just go over this one kind of quickly because I think I'm getting boring. But the other, yeah, man, this stuff is kind of dense, and really, when sports aren't actually going on, like, what else do we have to talk about, right? Like, I guess we can cover.
I mean, again, my piece of paper from UNM says history on it, so that's why I'm single.
I'm a history major too, man, and I'm very lucky to be married to my wife. But anyway, the last provision is the roster limits. And what that is the NCAA, I guess, because they're going to, I think this is the impetus behind it, because they're going to start paying student athletes, their athletic budget's going to go up. I mean, that's $20.5 million that the Power 5 conferences can disperse within their athletic departments to student athletes. And we don't know, again, how that's going to look. They're saying most of that money is going to go to football and men's basketball. Then you got some Title IX issues, which is another area of the law that needs to be ironed out. But the roster limits are because, I think they're going to start paying student athletes. So it's like, shoot, well, maybe we'll pay less student athletes. But so, for example, football's roster limit, I mean, schools in the SEC, they have football roster limits up to 140, 150 players. They have 85 scholarships available under the current rules. But their roster limits are going to be capped at 105, but all those players can be put on scholarship. So you see that's, for some SEC schools that are super deep, that's reducing the roster by like 30, 40 players. The sports that are hit the hardest are the non-revenue generating sports like cross country, gymnastics, swimming, baseball, which is semi-revenue generated for some schools. I don't know how much it is for UNM. They're seeing a significant cut in how many roster spots they'll have available. I think I can't remember what it is for baseball off the top of my head, but anyway, athletes are losing their spots. And schools were already planning on implementing this. And I promise, Ryan, I'm like wrapping this up. I'm just trying to
No.
put it all together.
I'm listening and I'm learning.
For sure. And so schools started implementing all of this new stuff before the settlement got final approval from the judge. The judge had a pre-approval hearing in the fall of 2024, and that's where the parties kind of present the settlement agreement to her. She reads it. She says, okay, it looks good. These are some things that I think need to be worked out. And her initial gripe was with another provision of the settlement agreement, which I won't go into. It has to do with regulating third-party NIL deals. But eventually what happened is all these kids that started losing their roster spots, they were told by their universities, hey, we're going to have to cut you after this season, or there's not going to be a spot for you next year because of all these roster limits that are being imposed because of this court decision. We want to keep you, but we just can't keep you because there won't be a spot for you. So all of these people started getting their own attorneys. Like, they were supposed to be part of the represented class, and some of them did file formal objections with the judge. But they started getting their own attorneys and writing letters to the judge and telling her, like, look, like, I have this super sad story. I was a college athlete. And now I'm being told I may not have a spot. This settlement is not fair. And so the judge, when it came time for final approval, she was like, no, this settlement is not fair and reasonable to part of the class that it's supposed to be settled for. It was supposed to be settled for current athletes. And there's some current athletes that are getting damaged because they're not even going to get to participate or even have the opportunity to make money next year. So the judge held up the settlement. Some of those kids got their own attorneys. They're referred to as the objectors within the case. And so where the case is right now, this is where I'll end it. They were supposed to get final approval, I think, at the end of April, and the judge said, no, you need to fix these roster limits. You need to find a way so that anyone who is guaranteed a spot, at least for the upcoming year, 2025-26, they are given a roster spot. It's not fair that they were just taken away. And so what the parties did is the NCAA and the class action plaintiffs filed a brief with the court yesterday saying this is how we fix the roster limits. And what they did was they made, this is where I get a little bit hazy, but I think they made, they allowed it so that any athlete who was cut or was going to be cut, that this next season, if they're not able to play, will not count towards their eligibility. So the fix is supposed to be designed for, well, you may not get to go back to the school that you were originally at where you lost your roster spot, but you'll at least get to keep a year of eligibility and hopefully find another school. So I think that's how they tried to fix it. And what happens next is by Tuesday of next week, May 13th, the objectors and their attorneys get to file a brief with the judge. The judge will review all that, and then she'll make her final decision on whether or not the settlement gets approved. If it doesn't get approved, she's got the parties on a tight briefing schedule, and I would anticipate that they would go to trial either late at the end of this year or early sometime next year. And the damages, so this, I believe it's an antitrust lawsuit, and you can triple your damages in those cases. And so they would be looking at substantially more money than what the case is going to settle for, at least the monetary provision of the settlement. So sorry, Ryan, I did some legal rambling there. I will shut up now.
No, looks like we gained some listeners. Ed, were you going to say anything?
Yeah, son, I know it's not an area you're familiar with, but you've been doing a lot of studying on it, and I've been reading the paper when they, the judge, sends them back. But this sounds like it could take a long time to unravel. It really does. It sounds like it's been a case. It's been going on for a while, and there's a lot of I's that need to be dotted and T's that need to be crossed. It sounds like I don't know anything about it, but just the way you explained it, and you've been researching and writing about it, sounds like a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot. And I mean, it's frustrating for normal college sports fans because it's like we don't want to be talking about the law. We don't want that to dominate the headlines. But no, we've been following it. And yeah, happy to talk about it, Ryan.
No, I appreciate that. And that wasn't sarcasm on my end. It was kind of a joke. Hey, we did gain some more listeners. I don't know anything about it. And then and not to steal thunder from you, Nick, at all. And this is coming from me who pursued a career in this. I respect a lot more from journalists who work in that aspect and write about it. Ross Dellinger on Yahoo, college football writer for Yahoo Sports. He's always writing about it. I recommend reading him. I mean, he's updating it by the minute. That is his job. Nick, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, just a couple other people that I follow that can really educate you. They're on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Mitt Winter, and I'll try to put these Twitter handles in the chat if anybody's interested, but Mitt Winter is another good one. Ross Dellinger, like you just mentioned. I got to think of another one. His name's Sam Eisinger, I think. I may be mispronouncing his last name, but he's a law professor at Boise State. He really breaks it down. So yeah, no, there's a ton of journalists and legal commentators who really break this down. And I mean, I just try to follow those people on X and try to understand what they're writing. A lot of the time I got to read it like 3 or 4 times.
I don't give Yahoo Sports enough credit. I think they actually do a really good job. I think people kind of like Yahoo News and Yahoo Sports. I think Yahoo Sports is pretty damn good. I read The Athletic. I try to at least read the headlines on The Athletic daily because ESPN, I'm not trying to be like everybody else here in Hot Take. I can't stand ESPN. I'm picky and choosy with what they do. I like 30 for 30. I love College Game Day. I will always love College Game Day. I know people hate on Kurt. People hate on McAfee. Lee Corso is a god. I love College Game Day. Even the basketball. I kind of watched that with Reese Davis. I miss Chris Fowler hosting it. Reese Davis does do a good job. I'm not hating on Reese Davis. I actually enjoy Chris Fowler calling games. Just a man crush on Chris Fowler. I just can't. it pains me, and I like SVP. I don't watch it in Stanford Steve. I just think I don't know what it is. I don't watch First Take. I mean, there's a reason the MLB told them to kick rots, because they're talking about, Kendrick Perkins being unfollowed by LeBron on Instagram in the middle of July in the All-Star break and maybe a playoff push. Sorry, Nick, I'm going on a rant. By the way, the Timberwolves won. Thank God. Yeah, it was like 30-10 at one point, or 30-7. But they did win. I guess that's the only game tonight. Thank you, NBA scheduling. I thought this was very fascinating during the week, and has nothing to do with UNM, but Akron is ineligible for a bowl game this upcoming year. For academics, they posted I don't know what this means. But they posted in 2023-24 came in at 9. Their academic progress rate came in at 914. It was the second straight year that Akron had an APR of less than 930 per NCAA. I know nothing about this. Per NCAA rules, back-to-back seasons with a sub 930 APR equals a postseason ban. So Akron is the first FBS school since Idaho in 2014 to get a postseason ban for low APR, though the NCAA paused APR penalties from the start of the COVID-19 pandemic until 2023. Akron hasn't been to a bowl game since 2017, when it lost the Boca Raton Bowl to finish 7-7. So I guess they won. I don't know how the hell. I guess you played in the MAC championship. I guess if you're going 7-7, I think that's pretty funny that happened. So that's about the sports news I got this week. I got to get back into it. Again, I did nothing on my birthday on Tuesday, and it was absolutely fabulous. Here we go. Keno, how's it going, man? Guys, what do you think about the current state of the offensive line with guys like Mason Jones and Tyler Lawrence coming to Albuquerque? I would have to do more in depth. That's a Sean Ryder question. Obviously, with Richard Pierce, who I'm trying to get on the show maybe next week. I would imagine that has to add strength to it. I need to do a little bit more research on those guys. I'm going to be transparent with you. I wouldn't know. Nick and Ed here are the basketball gurus. To the comments before we have the final thoughts. Eric Markham Bueller, thank you for the birthday wish, by the way. Let's go. Good evening, gentlemen. I'm loving the team that's being pieced together. I see a lot of potential, and it will be easy rooting. There we go. Me not being able to read, and it will be easy to root for our Lobos. Let's get some big Lawson love ring. Anybody? I don't know who that is. I'd have to look that up. Nick posted this. Mike Roberts, the podcast Beyond the Box Score with UNM's assistant coach, Mike Roberts, is back in February of 2025. At Lobo Ronnie, you're big time when you have a sports reference page of yourself. Yeah, Mike Roberts did. 6'9", 235 is what he was listed at back then. LOL on Coach Roberts losing to Bubba Jennings playing a horse. Bubba is a New Mexico living legend. Ed, you would probably know more about that than I.
He is, absolutely.
Good to know. Okay. Coach Janko's Little Zugbras or Texas Roadhouse. That's got to be a Midwest thing. Eric Markham, Ryan, Nick, Ed, you guys are killing it. Great interview. I'd be really enjoying your question. I'm making up a word. I really enjoyed your questions, and we learned about Coach Mike. Yes. There you go, Ed. Thanks, Eric. You bet, Ed. Thank you. I can't believe I'm reading those. Eric Markham. Our new QB, Cole Welliver, looks like a complete stud. There is a 6-minute portal video online. Check it out. Great mechanics and looks really solid. I will look into that. I predict he will be the starter at some point. UCLA got Nico. No way we win. I do have hope, though. Yeah, Ronnie, that's when that happened, I was like, I'm going. Plus, I've always wanted to go to the Rose Bowl. Next stop is to get my mom there for one last time. She went and saw Mark Brunell take on Washington in New Year's Day, 93. She sat right on the 50-yard line. Any final thoughts from you guys? I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but Nick, I'll start with you.
No. Just really appreciated Coach Roberts joining us here tonight. It's just kind of a dead period for Lobo football and Lobo basketball. We look at the recruiting news, but other than that, just not a lot is going on. But no, I think we're doing a great job. Ryan, you've been going out to some baseball games, man. Like, you wrote a nice story. Check out our website, thepitpress.com. Ryan wrote a nice story about Lobo baseball and their series against San Jose State. So I think that's kind of what's next is Lobo postseason baseball, hopefully. So we got to cover it.
Yeah, before Ed, I'll throw it over to you. Any final thoughts? You know what, Nick, before I go to your dad, you were the one who suggested Mike Roberts, so thank you for that. That was phenomenal. I think that was a much sometimes I'm always like, oh God, is this guy going to talk? And he was really good. I mean, these guys are professionals. They're not all Bronco Mendenhalls. Ed, over to you.
No, you know what? I enjoyed Coach Roberts. I liked the podcast Eric sent, and I learned a lot about him just about the mentors he had. He hurt his leg. He was going to play a lot, and then he hurt his leg on Halloween, he mentioned. And that he went from that to a role player, but he was very transparent. Said there was guys that were better than him. So I learned about him as a player, as a coach, his approach. So I think it's a real good get for Coach Olin. I really do. I think he's going to add a lot here. And I think my son mentioned he does want to be a head coach someday. So just another stop for him. And I think he's going to add a lot of experience on the bench here at UNM. He'll help the staff quite a lot, I think.
No, I appreciated it. Appreciated it. Huge baseball series coming up. Maybe playing for first place. Yeah, okay, that's what I was about to get to. UNM is in Colorado Springs this weekend to take on the Air Force Falcons. 3:00 tomorrow, 1:00 on Saturday, noon on Sunday. You can watch all on the Mountain West Network. I will be keeping a close eye on this series. The baseball standings, I'm going to share my screen here. Because they are fun. They are fun to watch offensively. If you're like me and a defensive guy, they make me want to take the bat and bash my head. But when it comes to baseball, I'm a little bit different. I do like a little bit of offense, and I'm not talking like home runs. I'm talking small ball. But I do like a good pitcher's duel. Let me bring this up. Here's the standings as I butcher this segment. They are 15-9. They had to cancel a series with Texas Tech. They're 15-9, tied with Nevada and Fresno State. They just swept San Diego State this week, and I believe they were down in 2 of the games. They won 9-7 in 10 innings on Friday. They won 9-8 on Saturday, and they won 15-7 on Sunday. Again, supposed to play Texas Tech. I mean, this is a 10-14 team in Air Force and 18-30 overall. Have to look at who Nevada and Fresno State play, and obviously UNLV is probably sneaking in there. That is huge. Their senior day is a 3-game set starting next Thursday. Might have to cancel show that night. They play the 15th, the 16th, and the 17th. Senior day is Saturday at noon, May 17th. And then they go to Mesa, Arizona and Salone Park. I don't know whose minor league team that is. It's a neutral site for the Mountain West Baseball Championship. That's May 21st through the 25th. So there you go there. I don't know. That's pretty impressive considering where they are at. They probably could have used the game against Texas Tech that was canceled. I don't know where Texas Tech ranks. But they're exciting to watch. I finally met Todd Brown. Let's see where they are in the Big 12. And make this very quick. This is probably you're talking about law was more riveting than me hosting the show right now.
No, it wasn't, Ryan.
Texas Tech is 11-13 overall in the Big 12. 17-28 overall. So I don't know if that would have, I don't know how they select the committees, but or how the committee selects that. But I know you have to win, and then you get sent to a regional and kind of like the they are number 1 batting average in the country. Will Aspie, Ethan Ott, the first baseman. The leadoff guy is pretty good. God, what's his name? It's gonna drive me nuts. I know I'm gonna see it. Khalil Walker. and they're all like transfers and some local kids, so that's exciting. But anyway, yeah, I recommend that. We might be talking about that a lot the next couple weeks, and if they can make the tournament, holy hell. Yeah, Jordy Orich is good too. I don't know, they're exciting, but anyway, I don't want to keep rambling and keep butchering hosting this show. I try to put more effort in this, but this week was a little bit lackadaisical, and I was off on work on Tuesday, so because I didn't want to do jack shit, and that's going to be my curse word on that. Anyway, Ed and Nick, appreciate you guys tonight. Steve Kirkland over at UNM, thank you for helping us out with Mike Roberts. No, not that one. One of the new assistant coaches at for the UNM men's basketball team under head coach Eric Olin. Next week again, might do a show Tuesday, Wednesday. See if we can book. I know I'm going to effort Jason Eck, Richard Pierce from football, and then we'll kind of give a lull, and then see what we can't do over the summer. Probably starting in June, start checking in with people who cover football teams around the Mountain West Conference. It is almost that time. We will all be in Vegas at Circa for the Mountain West Conference Football Media Days, July 16th and 17th. Yeah, 16th and 17th. The three of us on screen are going. Jacob's going. I need to get Jacob on the show to talk some college basketball. And hoping Eric can go, which would be fantastic. Please check out our website, thepitpressnm.com. Exclusive content, Pit Press Plus. $2 a month. That's a cup of coffee, or $25 for the year. That's a couple of cups of coffee during the course of the year. Check that out. I know we're trying to get more. We all have day jobs. But I think as we hit the summer lull, it'll kind of stink, but going to Vegas will really help. And again, thanks to Mike Roberts. Again, next week, probably looking at doing a show Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I think Thursday, probably going to go to the Fresno State game there, Nick. I don't know if you want to join. But next week, Nate Strong for sure, and be a little bit more coordinated than we have the last 2 weeks. Again, just kind of coming down the end of the academic year, and then my birthday, which I really kind of didn't care. However, we might not be able to do a show next Wednesday night because I'm not going to compete with the NFL schedule release. So we'll figure that out. I don't know. Maybe we can do a show Sunday night. We'll figure something out. Definitely Tuesday. Nick and Ed, I know I'm rambling. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. And as I always say, don't do anything that I would do. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll keep you updated with our schedule. I'm Ryan Tamori for Eric Moulton. This was the Pit Press Live.